Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Movement Made Better podcast. We got Coach Ray with us today. How's it going, guys?
Good. It's good.
Good.
It's toasty, man.
It is very toasty. We are in the middle of a heat wave, Matt.
Yeah, it's like
Today's last day.
what are we doing here? Why is it this hot?
Yeah.
It should never be this hot. Meanwhile, people in the Middle East are like, "Excuse me."
Yeah.
Or Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona.
It's hotter
Yeah.
here than Arizona, which is wrong.
Oh,
That's weird.
Was it really?
That's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it was 111 here
Yeah.
Tuesday and 106 there.
wow.
Yeah.
No. Sorry.
Not with it.
Yeah.
No,
Not with it.
way too hot.
Not
Yeah.
for the cost of living here compared to Arizona.
No.
I guess on one side we can say, well, you build a tolerance to that heat, right? You got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable,
But
right?
it's been a
But I love my
it's
air
been a
conditioning.
mild summer. It's just this
Yeah, it has. It's just been this one
One
week.
week.
It just came all on us, right? Challenging that power grid of ours.
Yeah, for real.
To get out of the heat the other day, it was interesting. I played goalie for the first time in over 30 years in hockey. So I was asked by one of my teams if I wanted to try to get back in the net. And let me tell you, man, I really quickly forgot how tough it is from an energy expenditure standpoint to play in net. And I think it's because a lot of people think, well, you're just standing there. You got extra padding on, which nowadays is much lighter than it was when I grew up playing goalie, but it's still extra equipment. And it's interesting, my low, like cross the QL and TVA was really, really sore on fatigue just because of holding that awkward position, different position I haven't held in a long time. So it was quite interesting. But I was really surprised how bulky the equipment is. It's lighter, but it's so bulky.
So was it hard to move
I felt like
in every sense?
I
or was it?
I felt like Randy from Christmas Story.
Mm,
Guys, I can't get up. It was just weird because it's interesting. A buddy of mine said, well, today's goalies are much more shot blockers than they are goalies.
mm-hmm.
Goalies are taught to play angles and percentages, so they're basically just more blocking shots than they actually are relying on their athleticism. And so that's why some of the top goaltenders in the NHL, for Shesterkin for the Rangers, Vasilevsky for the Lightning, they're considered the tops because they're more athletic goalies than they are just positional goalies.
Right.
And the pads are so big, like it was so hard to move. And so it was interesting because I was like, well, and it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
The equipment is just the arm and chest protectors. Oh my God. I mean, pretty much Kevlar is about the only other thing I could put on top of it.
Yeah.
But it was so big compared to what I grew up with. And I was like, well, safety is so high a priority that for me, it actually compromised agility.
Mm.
So it's like wearing knight's armor.
Dude, it was, it was just weird. And so, I didn't have goalie skates, so that changes a lot because regular skates, forward skill position skates have a little bit of a rock to it, where goalie skates are completely flat, so it does change how well you move. So that was a big part of it. But the confinement of the equipment was really, really weird. So I was kind of like, how much are we? I was literally sitting there going, are we really trying to be so safe that we've made, for me, I was way less athletic.
You think you were more sore too because, well, you haven't done it in 30 years, but also because you haven't done it in 30 years, you weren't relaxed. I bet you're pretty tense because you're not used to that.
Holy shit. So the first period, I got lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. But I kind of lost position on the ice because it's been so long since knowing where your crease is. First period, I was nervous as shit. Like I literally had, between the first and second period, I had to tell myself, relax, slow your breathing, and literally just relax. So in the second period, but that whole first period of warm-ups, I was like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Goals in?
Oh yeah, dude, I got lit up. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Well, the other team was interesting. The other team had a bunch of ringers from several levels up that came down. Yeah, so they lit me up pretty good. But then first and second period, it got way better. So, but yeah, it was quite an experience, and like I said, just for me to see the graduation or the evolution of equipment. Mm-hmm. But like I said, in my opinion, I thought the equipment was detrimental to my performance, not beneficial.
So here's a question, actually. So do you feel like you expended more energy because of how restricted you
Oh,
felt?
totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Okay.
It was just felt awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because, my body started, as the game went on, I kind of got more into the groove of it, right? Getting back to relearning and re-feeling what I had known before, right? But at the same time, I was like, I'm expending way more energy than I should.
Yeah.
Because like the goalie pads come up to my crotch. Yeah. And that's the way goalies wear them now, is they wear them all the way up here. When I grew up, man, goalie pads stopped about 2 to 3 inches above your knees. That makes a massive difference in your movement. I'm like, but that's the way goalies wear them nowadays. So it's like, if I go and it's going to be weird, because for me, like if I decide to start playing goalie again, I'm going to go get my own equipment. I'm going to be looking to try to get smaller equipment, which I know everyone in the stores is going to be like, no, you don't want that. And I'll be like, no, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Like I do. Like I don't mind pain, because that was the weird thing. It was so much padding. You can't feel the puck. Yeah, dude, you can't feel it. Like you know it hits you, but you can't feel it. And that was a big part, because as a kid growing up, like the old equipment, like you got hit. There were times where you're like, oh, I felt that.
Yeah.
But it was just part of what you grew up with, right? Mm-hmm. But you felt it. You knew where it was. This stuff, like when it hit my chest, like boom, I'd feel it. I'd feel the vibration, the impact. But there was so much communication to the brain that was lacking, because there's so much cushion. Yeah, if you got
completely messed up like your sensory information you needed.
Yeah. Now I know, like if you grew up with it today, like this is what you know, right? You don't know what it was like to have equipment from 30, 40 years ago. But it was interesting to see that, for me, to experience that transition in the equipment. I was like, whew.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. I'm telling my wife, I'm like, maybe I'll have to go online and get some vintage shit. They would trip out if I came out with some fucking 1980s padding. They'd be like, what the f-? Yeah, they'd be like, holy shit. And I know it would make me smaller, because that was the thing. The equipment is so bulky, it makes you look so much bigger than you actually are.
Right.
Yeah, Sherry took a picture of me. Holy shit! My hashtag short wide guy. Yeah, I'm wide. Like I walked out of the locker room. I didn't even walk. I kind of waddled out of the locker room. Shit! The look on my face. I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, holy crap! It was nuts. It was nuts. Yeah. So our episode today, we're gonna give our personal 5 favorite exercises or drills we like to do. Mm-hmm. Right. So, Ray, we'll start with you, but what's one of your first?
One of the ones I thought about was actually Palloff presses. I'm a big fan of them. The way I look at Palloff presses is just a drill to utilize how to yield at certain forces. And so I can use like a band, a cable machine, or even sometimes like putting a weight on a band and just pressing it out and then reacting to the band. So that is one I like personally. It's something I do like probably about once or twice a week. I actually did quite a few. I think I did a few sets yesterday, just to kind of get back into like a little bit more of a higher duration hold. So I did a hold for about 30 seconds. That's one of my go-tos for core. But also too, it's easy to regress it or progress it.
So how would you regress a Palloff press?
So if someone's having let's say someone's having a tough time with, let's say, organizing their spine. They don't know how to organize their rib cage and their pelvis. I would actually take them to a tall kneeling, just to take away the lower body just a little bit, just so they can focus on their positioning of staying nice and tall. But I would actually give them a super light band, just to kind of give them that feedback that they need in order to be a little bit more reactive to the forces. But that would be like the very first place I started. It's just giving them a super light band, hold this position, and don't do it in repetitions, but just hold.
What would you take somebody to a seated position?
Yes, if needed. The only issue I would have with the seated position is that it completely disassociates the lower body. To where if they're having a hard time even knowing how to move or how to organize, I feel like taking them to a seated position might make it a slight bit more of a disadvantage to them.
Yeah.
So seated might not always be the best way to go, in my opinion, but just a standing or like even a tall kneeling would be a place I would start if someone's having a really, really hard time.
what would be a progression for you? Not your client, but for you.
For me.
Truck pull.
Truck pull. Ray's like, start the engine.
I would do I would do it from like a split squat position is one of the ones I actually really like. And that can be from having the outside leg forward or inside leg forward. If I want to make it harder, I will go with inside leg forward. That for me is tougher.
Okay.
That's one aspect. Another aspect is, like I said, having a weight on a band and just pressing it out quick, but being a little reactive to make sure I'm not losing any my balance. Because that's one of the other aspects I found with playing around with Palloff presses over the years is that balance is a huge part, but it's never really challenged all that much. So adding that little bit of reactiveness into it, I feel like makes it a little bit more beneficial.
I really like the split stance because then you kind of connect the slings and everything, depending on which foot you have forward.
Yeah, and then you can add another exercise like doing it from a squat position or doing it from a bottom lunge position or whatever. So that's one of the things I like about it is the progressions and the regressions are specifically position based as opposed to resistance based.
Very nice. Neal, what's your first one?
If I had to put it in order, I'd say top one would be hill sprints. Hill sprint or
okay,
run,
yeah,
right?
okay.
Because, well, it keep you athletic. You get a good blend of power, strength, speed. They're scalable for anybody. Right? Like for me, like my biggest goal is I want to stay athletic. Right? And then I find the hill sprints literally transfer over to everything I do. Doesn't matter what it is. And it can be, even if it's a longer sprint and it doesn't look like you're sprinting, you can still go max effort. So whether I do a 10-second one, 5-second one, that's more for like pure power speed, or I go for a minute and I get a little more power, strength, endurance, get the cardiovascular benefit. Like I would prefer that over a sled sprint or something like that because you get to deal with more impact, right? You have to propel yourself up this hill. Yeah, can't just lean into it.
But your joints actually get challenged more.
Yeah,
in the uphill versus a sled sprint. So that alone is worth a huge benefit.
But then also that slight incline or steep incline, it's pretty rare to ever get like a hamstring pull compared to a flat sprint. Yeah, that's number one for me, because sprinting is something we should be able to do. Everyone should be able to do at some level.
At some level, right?
You can do it at high effort, and we should be able to find exercises for people that you can do all out.
Yeah. And that's relative to each individual.
Yeah.
Someone else's walk is our walk is someone else's sprint.
Yeah.
So it's all relative to the person. I think we tend to forget that. But if you were to regress that for somebody, what would you tell them?
I mean, I would go to incline that they could run up. They don't have to go all out.
Yeah.
But they start building some capacity. Maybe it's like a 70-80% go at it. Just reduce your speed a little bit. Start off in a jog and then accelerate for maybe 10-15 yards and then jog after that. But don't abruptly start in an all-out sprint. Like kind of build into it.
Would you ever do that loaded as a progression?
Probably not.
No?
I mean,
carrying a bag, like even if I say you were carrying maybe just a 10-15 pound ball?
Nah.
No?
Nah. I mean, maybe like a 5-10 pound vest or something like that.
Oh, so you put on your mask.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to get as big of a benefit. I mean, if you're playing football or something like that, yeah, that makes sense. But for myself, I mean, just that arm pump, all that stuff, I just feel like you get way more out of it just being able to be free.
I think probably a big obstacle would be getting that, especially a client, would be removing that hesitancy or inhibition to actually run up a hill, though. I think for a lot of people would be something that would be an obstacle.
Yeah, you started jogging up the hill and then you kind of increase distance to get comfortable with that. And it's really self-limiting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, it is, yes.
You get to a point where you just can't power yourself up anymore. Your body just stops. You just listen to it and you go, okay, I'll walk down. I'll recover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see people are afraid to run.
They are. Yeah. But hill sprints are fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's like Neal said, everybody should be doing them at least to some level, to their own level, so to speak. If for my first one, it would be crawling patterns. Talk about connecting hands to the feet. I think that does a great job. It's just body weight loaded, So really, and there's so many variations to crawling, and you can challenge the crawl patterns by putting constraints on yourself or the client on how they're going to execute the crawl pattern. If they have to go around, if they have to avoid things as they're crawling, to adapt to that. So they're not only getting the body moving, but then they have to actually react to other objects. So that's a big part. So for me, I enjoy crawling.
So how would you regress that then?
I think for crawling, a lot of people, it's more loading the wrists. We know that that's a big issue for a lot of people. You can actually put a plyo box up against the wall, anchor it against the wall so it's set, and you can use an incline type of crawl pattern. So you would just kind of tuck yourself into that crawl pattern and then lift your arm and your opposite leg off the floor. You're still getting that anterior posterior sling connection that we're looking for. It's just to a lesser degree, so you're in between that vertical and horizontal position. So it's a little bit easier on the wrist. If it's still hard on the wrist, you could either go knuckles position if someone's okay with that, or use handles that you can go vertically so the wrist is in a more neutral position, and then work the wrist mobility in a separate drill, because you still want to open up the joints, increase the capacity on loading the joints, but that you would do separately and then come back to the crawl pattern. But I think that's a great way to regress that.
Like, what's your most advanced crawl for yourself?
I think learning how to crawl under objects, low objects, without scraping the floor is really one of the best ways to challenge yourself in that crawl pattern position, because once again, there's constraints to it. So you got to figure out, okay, how am I going to fit my body into these constraints, right? And then if you really want to ramp it up a little bit, then you can add a little bit of resistance either behind you, in front of you if you're going reverse, right? So, and that's the thing with beauty about crawling is you can use it in evasion style work. There's really no limitation to direction in which you're crawling, unless you as a coach put those constraints on yourself, right?
Right.
But that's one of my favorite drills.
Okay.
I saw a really good way to eliminate that wrist issue is to put your hands on a downhill surface.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
So, like the incline board. Yeah. And have people crawl that way. And that's another reason why with the incline board, I'll have people crawl. Yeah, hold that position. Just loading though. Just statically loading, right?
Just statically
just
loading
boom, lift the knees off the board. Just get used to that. But then I like to have them crawl on that frontal incline.
Yeah.
Right, because then it teaches the wrists on that frontal plane how to deal with that, which is a big issue of dealing with that torque in that position. So I think those are that incline is a big part of is a great way to help people overcome those wrist limitations.
Absolutely makes sense.
What's your next drill?
Carries.
Carries
of any kind. So for me, I have all my clients do carries, but I do carries myself pretty often. And that can be in a multitude of ways, and there's so many ways to regress it and progress it. So like for a basic farmer's carry, I like either using kettlebells, or sometimes I'll play around with it and do a pinch carry, or even just using, what are those called? It's kind of like almost like a yoke bar, I think, kind of like they're using strongman. So there's different grip. Yeah, I think it might be axle bar. But they have the different grip strength, grip sizes. I like using those. Yeah. So I use that for different things. It just makes sense to me. It's mainly because you're fully loading your entire system. You're getting a lot of people forget this, is that you're getting a lot of shoulder work on it as well. Especially if you're doing endurance carries, or even if you're just trying to get people to really organize the spine and how to move a little bit more efficiently while carrying load, and also not be extremely stiff. Yeah. But actually have those tiny bit of fluidity as they're actually walking.
Like you said, there's all variations of carries. I think a lot of people get keyed in on just the farmer's carry.
Yes.
Right? But you got a ton of carries are carries.
Yes.
Whether they're front loaded, back loaded, side loaded, overhead loaded, carries are carries, right? So, and you have a variety of objects that you can use.
Exactly.
Well, whatever's at your disposal, you use it, right? If it's a lighter object, then just increase the duration that you're carrying it, right? Versus just going, okay, it's too light. Well, you keep walking with that, it's going to start to fatigue you at some point.
Yeah. Or just change position of the object.
Or change
So-
position of the object.
One of my favorite ways to do carries is like a double front rack carry
Okay.
with kettlebells. Those are hella hard.
Yep.
Nowhere, you're not going to carry anywhere close to what you do for a farmer's carry.
No.
No.
But it's super beneficial in just getting that tall spine position because people aren't really all that good at it. So I find that for myself, particularly if I'm doing if for some odd reason that week I do like a lot of presses, which is put down on the back seat, I'll do a double front rack carry just to get me back to standing up nice and tall. So as I'm moving with the weight, I'm challenging those tissues that are effectively like not utilized as much for that period of time. So that's one of my favorite ways, or even just doing like a medicine ball carry. You take a medicine ball,
Yeah.
put 60 pounds on one shoulder and carry that for even a minute. That's actually a lot harder than people think.
Well, that's conventionally a position that we're probably going to carry stuff in more often than we think we would,
Yeah.
right? Like let's say you go to the hardware store, the gardening store, right? And you're buying bags of topsoil or something.
Yeah.
Typically, when you get home, how are you going to unload or load them, right? It's the most convenient is just putting it on the shoulder, as long as you have that mobility to load that, right? A capacity to load it.
Yeah.
But I think more people are going to choose that than holding it in front.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if they don't have the back strength for it,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just think carries are amazing, and it's something that you literally do every single day in your life.
Yes.
And if you have little kids, you do it every single day.
Mhm.
From the
Yeah.
most awkward positions.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, trying to keep them away from something. Cracking eggs with one hand, moving around. So they're super functional.
Mhm.
What you're saying about holding something on one side,
Right.
which is great, especially on your shoulder, because you do have to have a little bit of side bend.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So then you start to learn how to balance in that position while you're walking.
Mhm.
Yeah, carries are definitely.
Yeah, I think the thing is with carries is getting comfortable, like what you said with kids, is not carrying your kid in the same arm all the time, though.
Yeah.
Which I think is a habit. But a lot of parents, I think they get in the habit of using the same arm all the time to lift their kid. And your kid's basically every week incrementally growing,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So your load is increasing week to week to week.
Yeah.
Right? So alternating those arms and carrying your kids alternating those sides is a big
Oh,
is a
for
big
sure.
thing.
Yeah.
What's a regression that we would use for a carry?
So regression would be like just picking up a dumbbell, just doing a dumbbell carry.
Just light.
And just keeping it super light. Even if somebody has still holding 10 or 15 pounds, for some people, that's a challenge. That might be a huge challenge, especially walking 30 yards. So I would load them up with like a really, really light dumbbell, get them really comfortable, like feeling a tiny bit of weight on one side and then being a little bit more reactive to it.
Yeah.
If I wanted to progress that to make it a lot harder, and I've tried this out myself in a couple different ways, I would have them do a banded kettlebell carry.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So hook the kettlebell on a band.
Yep.
So there's a lot of movement that you have to be reactive to. There's a lot of micro movements and adjustments that have to be made. I like doing that a lot, mainly because for one, it's different. It's really, really different. And typically the band shouldn't be too heavy either. It should be like a medium band, just so you're getting a lot of that movement. I've also done that with an overhead carry, which was hella hard.
Yeah.
Hella
Like with a
hard.
bamboo bar, or
Just with the band and a kettlebell. I've done it with the bamboo bar as well.
Remember we saw the Gatsu do that with the kettlebells on the bands in the overhead position.
Yeah, no.
So,
That,
so I've done it with the single band.
So you did a
Just holding
single
it here
band.
Okay.
Yeah.
and just walking, and that was like
and
super
it
tough.
still bounced,
And it still
still
bounced,
bounced,
still
yeah.
moved a little bit,
even though it touched your arm.
even though it was on the back of my shoulder, it was still moving.
Oh, okay.
So I still had to be a little bit reactive to it. So that's definitely much more advanced progression that I feel like. And there's a lot of demand for overhead carries, so I don't really have a lot of people do.
When you're doing carries, grip strength wise, are you cueing that?
Yes. So it depends on what the goal is. So a lot of people, when they do carries, at least what I notice, is they'll put it in the palm of their hand and then grip around it. I actually tell them to not do that. I tell them to grip right in front of the first knuckle and then grip around it. So it's actually really challenging to grip, not challenging like their palm necessarily. So incorporating that actual grip strength in it by actually like wrapping their fingers around and holding it. So when they actually get tired, like, oh man, my grip's going, I'm like, this is what we need to keep working on.
So because what you tend to see is as the grip is loosening, do you tend to see your clients pick up their pace?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, so for me, I typically cue slow down. If your grip, for me personally, if your grip is releasing, then I want you to stop, put the kettlebells down or whatever you're using.
Yes.
Give the hands a bit of rest, because that speeding up the motion is not going to benefit you. It's going to create some issues down the road. But I want that you to be in control, not letting that weight control you, so to speak.
Absolutely. And every once in a while, I'll put in certain stipulations.
Okay.
So I'll be like, all right, well, instead of doing a full grip, you're going to do a 3-finger grip.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I'll have people do that with lighter kettlebells,
Yeah.
but again, kind of go more for distance. And I found that I actually have people do more endurance carries. So instead of having them do like a 30-yard carry or 60-yard carry, I'll have them do like 120.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, I want you to carry this. This is going to be about 1.5 to 2 minutes, but I want you to get really, really efficient at building up that muscular endurance, but also like kind of recognizing how you're moving as you start to fatigue a little bit.
And that's going to be more like them actually carrying groceries too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because your groceries aren't going to be outrageously heavy where the bag's going to break
Mhm.
or something like that. And you're typically, I mean, it depends on how close you park.
Did you spend the half hour trying to
Yeah.
get 2 spaces closer than you if you were just parked out there?
That's true.
I like parking out farther because that makes me carry the bags for them.
It's
I
easier
get
to park.
it's easier
For
to
real.
park.
Yeah.
I got less constraints. I'm farther out. I'm done shopping by the time this person's been spending a half hour trying to get 2 spots
Yeah.
closer.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for me, it's like, I'm carrying my groceries a little bit farther, so it's a little bit more work.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
I had a client for a long time, and we did carries all the time. And I remember her texting me a picture of her at her front door with her groceries. She moved into a new place, and it was on the 3rd floor.
Mm.
And it literally took her a long time to be able to make it up to the 3rd floor without putting her groceries down.
Oh,
Picture, and she's like, all these carries are paying off. You know,
dude,
I can make it from my car all the way up to the top without putting them down.
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. See that, and that's transferability, right?
Exactly, yeah.
That and so and the empowerment that she got, the confidence
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
was incredible, right?
Okay,
Like,
this is why we're doing this stuff.
yeah, like I can just imagine her feeling
Mhm.
of being able to accomplish that. She was probably like, yeah, she was like, fuck
Yeah.
yeah, this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, farmers carries are great when we want to challenge ourselves with Matt. We go to the grocery store, got a ton of bags. Can we all carry them?
That's right.
It's the dude thing, right? I'm going to put them all in one hand. Well, then we see, okay, can I do this all in one hand? No, that's all okay. But we want to see how least amount of trips we can make, right?
Oh, big time.
If we got 20 grocery bags, I get all 20. I'll put 10 in these bags. Our arms are out to the side because the bags are hitting our legs. We're doing it. We got to go in sideways to the front
Yeah.
door, but we're doing it.
Hell yeah.
That's that dude
You
thing.
get some carabiners, hook up to your bag.
Nice. So what's your next drill?
Weighted hip strengthening. So a lot of times, using the sticks, like our standing hip drill.
Yes.
I'll put ankle weights on
Okay.
and do. So my favorites always change,
Mhm.
but there's probably like the sprints are ones that
Yeah.
are staples, but anything that strengthens your hips in multiple positions is a staple too. For myself and my clients, because that's literally like the center of your power right there.
Yeah.
Your hips.
Mm.
Not just that, but your capability to do anything.
Mhm.
Really. So if I can get that hip capsule, nice and free to move well, but then be able to create strength and force, like for me, that directly applies to sprinting. It directly applies to climbing, any athletic motion.
Yep, very good.
So how would
What's-
you regress it?
Take the weight off.
Because a leg is it's weight.
It's weight.
It's
yeah.
weight, right? And so for a lot of people, they're not used to holding their leg up in a certain position.
Yeah.
So we see that when we're teaching, right? Especially in courses. And we see people all the time. We make them hold that leg up, and they're like, "Oh, this is way longer than I." They're used to just lifting it and putting it right back down.
Start
We're
to see
like,
that shaking.
yeah, we're like, no, you're gonna lift it. You're gonna keep it up there,
Yeah.
and we're gonna teach those hip flexors what holding that leg up is all about, right? So there's a big difference. So your standardized is just loading it. What would a progression be?
Longer holds.
Longer holds.
Yeah, longer holds. Maybe multiple angles of resistance. Maybe you load it, and then maybe you could band load it too.
Challenge
in
it
a
with
different way. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But just that weight alone, and then pushing into the stick
Yeah.
that's plenty
Yeah.
for me.
Good call. Nice. Well, I had carries as one of my drills, so we match up on that. I love carries. I think carries should be a standardized part of everybody's workout, regardless of athlete or general population. I just think they need to be in there. I would say offset carries is a big part of, and changing the position is doing that, right?
Yeah.
Making sure, because that's the other thing too, is with farmers carries, you see everybody typically balanced out on the same size, right? So mix that up a little bit, do some offset carries. One of my favorites is the wall ball crawls. So for people that don't know what that is, myself, Ray, Neal, or clients, they got to take a weighted ball, put it up against the wall, and start on the floor, and you've got to roll that or crawl that up a wall to an overhead position, right? So the overhead position is relative to the client, depending on their shoulder mobility. So for some people, it may just be to eye level or whatever. But you've got to pin it to the wall, and all the way back down. So if it leaves the wall at any point, you've failed the lift. You got to put it back down and start again. I absolutely love it because it forces you to find different movement solutions, right? And I try not to give too many cues. It's just very simple, but constraints change. Right, so typically the first constraint is you can only use your hands to move the ball. I mean, that's it. And then from there, we'll change constraints, right? Where I'll say, okay, now you have to start on the ground on your back and then bring it up. Or you can only use one arm, right? But you can use the rest of your body, right? So we did that a couple weeks ago. And it's pretty exhausting.
It's exhausting as hell. It's like you're wrestling another person, basically.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing it with one hand. Dude, I was so gassed. Because it took me like, 2 minutes?
Two and a half minutes.
And I didn't complete it, by the way. I didn't complete that first time. But it is, if you're looking for especially like cardiovascular, I feel like that's a huge one. That's a huge one, especially that's low impact.
Low impact, right? And I tell people, look, you take a break. Like you can rest. But pinning that ball up against the wall, it's rest, but it's not rest, right? Like you're still leaning into it. You're still pushing through the ground. You're giving your body a little bit of time to bring that heart rate down a little bit, but it's going to stay at a pretty good level still, even when it's at the low level.
Yeah.
But it really is, for me, it's uncomfortable, and clients who aren't used to being okay with uncomfortable, this is a great exercise. It's going to really get them okay with that. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, it's low impact, right? There's no jumping and things like that. So, but to get them to understand ground force and how that transfers all the way up the body, I think is one of the biggest benefits. But challenging those starting positions and giving different restraints. I think a new version for me is having the client pin the ball to the wall. And that would be a regression, is just boom. Because if it's a 20-pound ball, I'll put it up on the wall for them, have them put their hands on it and go, I'm going to let go. Don't let this ball drop.
Yeah. Boom.
So for somebody that really needs to regress, just doing that and getting that forward intention, like Alex Canellis talks about, right?
Yeah.
That forward intention or the lateral rotational intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can change their body position and still have them just pin that ball against the wall. And from there, if as they get more comfortable, then just have them move the ball around. Mm-hmm. Have them change foot position. But I think a big progression that I'm going to do, we'll try it out on Sunday, is getting a laser pointer out.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. That's
because
awesome.
then you've got to react, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as we're moving the ball around, we're going to pin it up against the wall, and then whoever has the laser pointer is going to be moving the laser, and you got to move the ball to avoid the laser.
I like that. It's task specific.
Yeah. It's task specific, right? But that's going to be that adaptability where, okay, we're getting the body moving, but then we're tracking, we're making decisions, right? And that's where, like we talked about just a little while ago with that book, How We Learn to Move, where we have specific isolated drills. There's no decision making really in the process because everything's static. It just is there, right? So that's why when listening to that book, that's why I was like, oh, okay, let me put a laser pointer in with the wall ball crawl. Then that's going to get you even more learning process and decision making from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll do that this Sunday. That'll be a good time.
That's going to be awesome.
I think it's going to be fun.
Oh,
Yeah. So we'll just have to put constraints on how fast the The dot is moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to be dickish. Be like, ah. Yeah, the dot
Use, like,
moves slow.
tennis ball or something.
Yeah. You're like, "Ah, I got this all day long." But yeah, that's personally, that's one of my favorite drills. What's next on your list?
So for me, and I say this because I remembered how much I enjoyed doing it with Landmine.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
For those of you that don't know, we took Landmine University Cert last year. Super fun, really awesome. But the thing that I like about it is that it's applicable for a good portion of people, I'd say. But there's ways to regress it down to the most basic aspects and to make it really, really advanced. But also, I like doing explosive shit sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not always going to get a barbell and do some cleans because this is not what I go towards, and it's super duper technical.
Yeah.
So the thing that I like about landmine drills is that there's still that bit of technicality to it, but it's not something you have to practice all the time, and that's something you have to practice for years on end to get decent at it or get good at it. So for me, I like it because it's explosive, it's fast, it's hella fun, but also cardio. Holy shit, does it get my heart rate up like insanely. I did it for I think like 20 or 30 minutes and just working up through basic progressions, and I was gassed. I think my heart rate got up to like 165.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Well, yeah, it's intense.
It's intense.
Yeah, if you're interested in taking that's Landmine University. Just be prepared for how physically intense it's going to be.
Oh, man.
Because we did it over 3 days.
Yeah, and it was
but
3-4 hours?
Yeah, but now Alex has brought that down to 2. You're going to get the same amount in less time. So, so it's now a 2-day course versus a 3-day.
And it's 95% work. There's very little talking.
Yeah.
He's just telling you, he's just instructing you what to do, and then you're in it. He's like, all right, get on the wall. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
That's one I've done with some of my clients, particularly like if they're like tired or if they're like, hey, like I'm feeling like I'm not feeling super explosive, super energetic. I'm like, okay, so then we'll just work on a bladed position. Yeah. Let's work on switching, and then we'll do the stepping bladed position. So that particular exercise style is just fun to do. If I got 20 minutes, cool. Go in, do it in 20 minutes, and you're done. Yeah. And honestly, that's kind of all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so versatile that I find that even for some of my people that maybe don't move super well in certain regards, I'm like, okay, let's just keep this cold position and let's just work on this for the next few minutes.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, it is pretty scalable to even the aging population. Just doing that blade and just holding that static position, because you have different bars that you can use a lighter training bar. So you should be able to find something that you can adapt to regress them to that position.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would be, I guess a progression would be increasing the duration.
That's one of them.
One of them, so right? There's multiple.
If I want to progress it, like you could increase the load, but I don't necessarily like looking at increasing loads for progressions on certain things, but complexes.
Yeah,
so I'll do different movements and put them together. Either I'll do it for like 1 rep for certain movements, or I'll do 2 or 3, which increases the duration. Yeah. It's rough. I did this like a couple times where I worked from the most basic exercise and worked all the way up into the snatch, which is very technical, kind of. But even just working through 2 repetitions of each, I had to take a break from one side, switching to the other.
Yeah, because Alex had a switch decreasing work-rest ratios.
Yes.
Right, and also increasing duration too. So you have options there.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the work-to-rest ratio. You can screw around with that.
Oh, yeah. So I like to play around with that a lot. Every once in a while, I'll go like, all right, I'll go 3 reps on this. I'll take 15 seconds and do another 3 reps. But the weight is also typically lighter.
Yeah.
So it's not something I'm going to get sloppy with. If I get sloppy, the weight's dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like those. Those drills are fun.
They are.
Yeah.
It was super intense. Great time. Alex is a great guy. Great coach. We would highly recommend you taking the course. It was really good. Course. Yeah, and he's killing it. He's doing great. So I saw he's got some master instructors outside the U.S. now. Oh, damn. Yeah, he's got Peter Sisik out of Slovakia. He's one of our master instructors for stick mobility. Peter's a great guy. Super smart, great coach. But yeah, I saw Alex and he's running some great courses over there in Europe for Alex. So that's awesome. Yeah, nice. What do you got next on your list?
Kind of like you, man. Just like I like something that's real explosive, like moving weight around fast. So I like Olympic lifts, but I don't want to spend the time to refine my technique and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I like the muscle snatch. So basically taking something from the ground, like for myself right now, it's typically a barbell, fairly wide grip, and just throwing it up overhead as fast as I can. Relatively lightweight, nothing crazy, but you get speed, you get power, you get that vertical jump type feeling. That or sandbag. I'll do the same thing with a sandbag too. Just rip it off the ground, throw it up as fast as I can. Not for everyone. Many of my clients do this at all. I mean, you need a lot of things to work well. You need to be able to get into a deep position, a deep squat. You need to be able to deadlift well. You need to be able to press a barbell overhead. Your shoulders need to have good rotation. You need good wrist mobility. So there's a lot of factors that will limit you to doing this. But if you can do it, it's highly beneficial to be more explosive. Like they did all these force plate studies with a clean and a regular snatch, high pulls, all that stuff. And they found like using a lighter load with just a full muscle snatch, because you're catching it in the high position.
Yeah.
You don't have to catch it in a squat or anything like that. You just go ground overhead. And then you produce more ground force that way than doing an actual clean.
Interesting. I can see that.
Would you really limit the range of motion as regression? Like have them start maybe on an elevated platform at the starting stopping position, and then or the resting position, and then maybe just up to maybe eye level? Just really decrease because I mean technically this is still kind of going to that.
You could do that with a barbell, probably not.
But more like like a ball or a ball.
Yeah, definitely. You could do that. But for this one here, I would say the biggest benefit would be with people that can actually get into the positions already. Because if you can't get into these positions, so doing an explosive hinge and all that other stuff in the first place, I don't know if it's even worth it.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, there's a lot of clients you're like, no, this is not for you. And that's something to really think about. Yeah. Does your client have the prerequisites to meet the demands for doing this?
Exactly.
Yeah. And if not, then just try to find something else that's going to be able to give them the same benefits, but without all that, the risks, so to speak. Right.
So, like for a client, I would rather have them do like a med ball throw overhead, just a toss. They get some of the same stuff. It's a lighter weight, but they could still be explosive through the ground. And their joints, you don't have to be able to hold a weight all the way overhead, because by the time they release, that their hands are probably like right around chest to shoulder height.
Yeah.
So something like that.
I think for my next one, tag. Just tag. Different variations of tag, right? Don't tag. So especially as you're, with the books that we're reading and listening to, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like tag is really an underlying task or exercise that getting more popularized again, which I think all kids know how to play tag, right? But then adults forget what the benefits of what tag gave us, because as kids we don't think about that, right? It's not like we care. If I'm 8 years old, I don't give a crap what benefits I'm getting out of tag. I'm just playing tag, right? But then we think about decision making, tracking, change of direction, cutting, stopping, all these things, explosiveness relative to the person, right? Well, and then you got all the different variations of tag. So I mean, I think people think about tag as just running and standing, but you can do tag on the ground, right? You can do it in crawling pattern. You can do tag in rolling pattern, right? Talk about placing constraints, right? You're gonna do rolling tag. Like you that's all you can do, right? You gotta roll to tag each other. Or you have the professional tag league. I love watching that. Talk about just explosiveness and movement, fluidity. Man, I could watch those guys all day. I'd be slow as shit out there.
As long as you're having fun, right?
Yeah, right. I think that's what it is. But that's what it is, though. It is fun, though, right?
Because you're tapping into that inner kid, man, that you don't really dig it. You don't get into that as an adult that much.
Yeah. Not only that, but chasing something down is very primal.
Yes. Yes,
right?
it is. And
so we're getting back into that natural state of tracking and chasing something down. And so that's, I can sit and watch people play tag. It's just fun.
Okay.
And yeah, when people play tag, especially clients, there's usually a good amount of laughter going on.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, we make clients do things that they normally, they find, exhausting. They're not looking forward to it. So if you give them something like, okay, let's do 5-10 minutes of tag,
Mm-hmm.
and then before we down regulate, it's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Next exercise. So I was going to say squats, which probably isn't a surprise to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to go with split squats.
Okay,
Or any
split
kind of
squats.
like
Okay.
a lunge type of variation.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
As much as I love squatting, and I partly attribute that because I'm pretty decent at squatting, I think lunges or split squat are probably my favorite, either from the muscle building standpoint or from the strength standpoint. Hands down, probably one of the best lower body exercises in my opinion. It's something I do weekly. I do it pretty often, and if that's a walking lunge, if it's a Bulgarian split squat, if it's a front foot elevated split squat or whatever. But it's something that is a part of my regular exercise routine.
I love lunges, especially just multi-directional ones where
Yeah,
you've got to get in them and then get out of them fast too.
yeah.
What's a regression to a split squat?
So it's the way I would regress it is like a supported. So like a
There you
supported
go,
split
yes.
squat. Either that can be like a Hatfield version where they're just like holding onto a barbell and they're kind of lightly assisting themselves up. I'm not personally the biggest fan of using suspension trainers for it because people become a little bit too dependent on it.
Yeah.
And so using like a Hatfield kind of version tends to be, at least in my opinion, tends to be better because they still have to work on balancing, but they get that little bit of assistance of driving up, not holding into it. That's the way I would regress it. Or even, and I've seen this done before, where someone like hooks a band around their torso, and that band is anchored above, and that allows them to help a little bit, give them a little bit of assistance off. Not a lot, but a light.
Very nice. Now, let's say you wanted to really crank it up and really progress that split squat.
Oh man, if I wanted to hate my life, which is what it is, I would do like a front foot heel elevated split Bulgarian. And so,
Okay. All right.
and I would load that up with a pretty significant amount of weight, somewhere between a 5 to 10 rep range. For one, get a lot more range doing it with your front foot elevated. So I like that increase in range and challenge. But for two, having that more of that heel elevated position allows me to get further my knee in a more forward position. So I get a lot more tension placement on a quad and the glute to a degree. So if I wanted to really, really, really make it tough, I would do that. Or I would do like a Cossack squat, a loaded Cossack squat. I don't do them super often, but I do them every couple of weeks just to kind of keep that lateral movement pretty fresh, basically.
How much weight do you think you could do on a split squat? That version that you're talking about.
Though, man, the most I've done, I did body weight actually. So I was heavier at the time. So it was 220 pounds. And I think I did it for 10 reps per side. I could probably do more.
Yeah.
Do I want to? It's debatable.
Yeah.
Because it's relatively difficult to get into that position
Yes.
with a barbell on your back.
Oh, I did it with dumbbells.
Okay.
So when I do loaded like Bulgarians or anything,
Yeah.
I tend to do them with dumbbells or kettlebells.
Yeah.
If I'm doing walking lunges, I'll load a barbell up and just go.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do, I think the most I did with the barbell was 225.
Okay.
So actually ended up being 40 strides in total.
Yeah.
But 10 per side up and down the track.
Wow. That's beastly.
is.
That's beastly. Holy shit.
Not for everybody. Not for everybody.
Remember, these are our favorite
Yeah.
exercises.
Yeah.
Not everybody else's favorite exercises. So just keep that in mind as you're listening to this. This is shit we like to do to ourselves, right? Which is kind of masochistic in some ways.
Absolutely.
It's funny to see people's perspectives. Todd Dunphy, who lives around here, right? MMA guy. One day we were at the gym and I was doing Nordics. And he looked at me and goes, "What are you training for?" I said, "Nothing specific. I'm just doing these." He goes, "You like doing those?" "Yeah, and they're really beneficial." He's like, "F that." He's like, "If I didn't have to train," he's like, "That's ridiculous." He's like, "You just do that just because you like them?" I was like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, but it was just kind of funny to think like that kind of made me laugh because we decided, we choose voluntarily to do this to ourselves, right? No one's forcing us to do this. This is just shit we like to do to ourselves. which is kind of funny.
Well, it's funny because my clients would be like, you literally did this to yourself. Nobody made you do it. And I'm like, you're right.
Yeah. Like,
why do you do this to yourself? I'm like, I like it. Why not?
At some level, there's a little bit of masochism in all of us at some level when we do this to ourselves. That's
Absolutely.
All right, so what do you got next on your list?
Pull-ups, just weighted pull-ups, And it's funny you talked about how, our favorites, they change.
Yeah.
Because when I wasn't climbing, I stopped doing pull-ups. Just like, I don't need them.
Yeah.
And I'd always be able to do probably 8 to 10. Just having my own, just doing other strength training drills, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I started climbing again, I'm like, oh shit.
Oh, yeah, you
Kind of
Yeah. So
yeah.
I had to start doing weighted pull-ups, increase that capacity, increase my just absolute pull-up strength because it carries over. So for me, like when I don't see carryover into the activities I do, I get bored with the exercise. I get bored with the drill. I don't see reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
So pull-ups. I mean, that's basically it's literally I get benefit because I get more muscular in my upper body. I build more upper body strength, a little bit of grip strength. Not really much grip strength for climbing because you start climbing, you understand that's a different level of grip strength.
Yeah.
That basic hanging on a bar is not going to get you, and it's a great drill for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you personally regress that?
Regress that? Gosh, I mean, you could do start someone off on a lat pull down machine.
Okay. Absolutely makes sense.
Cable machine, something like that. I think that's probably I used to think the best way was to get them on the bar, but I think it's actually a lat pull down machine because you can get in there and you can control their rib cage position, their pelvis position, and you can get them to feel exactly what they need to feel, and then you can start to progress them up to the bar.
And it decreases the intimidation of hanging from something.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Is because you want me to hang?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a limiting factor for a lot of people. But yeah, like you said, a seated position, you remove that away automatically.
Yeah.
And so then you can get them much more in tune to what tissues or what areas of the body they should be really utilizing when they actually go into those pull-ups.
What I found was amazing is after doing a ton of weighted pull-ups for when I was in the gym and I had access to a lat pull-down machine, you go to the lat pull-down machine and you can just crank that whole rack, no big deal.
Yeah, the whole stack, yeah.
After doing weighted pull-ups for a while.
So as far as a progression, would you just go to a single arm weighted pull-up?
It would be, shit.
Or
first I get back to doing a single arm.
Okay.
I can't do it right now, that's for sure. Yeah, more weight, and then eventually go to a single arm, and then if you can do single arm, then go ahead and add load. Add reps, and then add load. Yeah.
I feel like if you're doing a single arm, you're basically won. You've basically won. Like if you've done a single arm pull-up, you've kind of won.
Yeah.
Well, I think even just single arm hanging.
Yeah.
Most people off the street, a single arm hang for, let's just say even 10 seconds is probably, I think you'd find a very small percentage of people could actually do that.
Who was it? Is Dr. Peter Attia? Did he say something about like a 2-minute hang for a male is
what he's looking for.
What you should shoot for.
Which is extremely challenging for the vast majority of men.
Yeah.
A lot of which is because most men are carrying more weight than they should. That's the number one factor. But number two is they just don't have the grip strength.
Yes.
Or the stamina, I should say, to last that long on the bar. Those hands start to give out big time.
So I remember when I went to Foodie Land.
Okay.
I went back in July. They actually had a hanging challenge.
Oh,
did they really?
But they had it. The bar was like on a rolling pin.
Oh.
So it was super tough.
So you had to keep your wrist locked in.
Yeah.
Even if you got your wrrist locked in,
it was hard. It's still gonna roll.
So I actually tried it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I literally got to like a minute and
4
seconds.
That's good.
I was pissed the fuck off because I almost won $100.
Wait, you did a minute 54 seconds on that?
And my hands just I could not hold on.
So what was it, 2 minutes?
2 minutes. I was fucking 6 seconds short.
You were 6 seconds
I was so mad. So the interesting thing was after I did that challenge, I went back to the gym to pick up equipment because I was going on vacation. And so I grabbed my shoes, my ballistic shoes and shit. So I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can hang on a regular ass bar. I did 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so it's not impossible, but I was like, okay, well, being on a rolling pin is
the demands are different. Yeah. Because you're resisting that roll.
Yeah.
The rotation. With on a regular bar, you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
You're just resisting gravity. Oh, interesting.
So it was interesting.
6 seconds away.
I was like, man, so mad.
Did you sense it happening, though? Did you sense that it was going to happen?
Oh, yeah.
You were just trying to push right through it.
I was trying to. I tried as hard as I could. I was like, this is like a real test of will. But when my hands opened, that's literally all I had. I had nothing. I couldn't give anything else.
Because like when I watch American Ninja Warrior, you can kind of sense when somebody's not gonna make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can be like, oh no, they're fatiguing.
Yeah,
like you just see it in their hand position, and when they transition from one hold to another, yeah, you can see okay, they're really struggling, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's others where you can see the confidence in their face.
Yeah,
like it's just there. You're like,
done,
dude. That person's just. Yeah, they've got it, and then they just got that look, like they're like, I got this. Mm-hmm. It's no big deal. And others you can see not just in their hands, but you can see it in their face too.
Yeah,
they're struggling. They're like, oh shit, I'm really trying to push through this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, weighted pull-ups. So that's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, so next time you see that,
I'm trying it again.
You're gonna try it again, huh?
Get that 2 damn minutes. I'm gonna get it. I was so determined,
well,
man.
I guarantee you, nobody's doing that. They probably haven't given away that $100.
Oh, no. I think most people failed. I think for women, it was 1.5 minutes. And one woman got pretty close. I think she got to 1 minute and 15 before her hands gave out.
Oh, shit. Wow.
But, like, those are kind of like, it's interesting because I feel like those are feats of strength that I don't really see that often, particularly with hanging. Because, like you were saying, right? Like, if you have somebody come in and be like, all right, hang on one hand for 10 seconds, that's super, super tough.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like, when I'm traveling, like, if I have to take, you get those little airport trams, mm-hmm. They take you from one terminal to the other, I'll just hang on, like, the bar in between. I've been sitting on a fucking plane.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do something, and then people just, like, kind of give me that odd look, like, what a weirdo. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, dude, I've just been sitting on a plane. Like, I'm just going to freaking just hang.
Yeah.
I'll give seats to everybody else. But, for me, it's like, just take that little bit of advantage that's there. Might as well use them.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I like to do little stuff like that. I think. Well, I had hanging as one of mine, right? Just generally hanging. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the 2 minute requirement. Dan John talks about just doing it for a minute, even, right? But I think going back to carries, backwards walking or backwards is something that's lacking in a lot of people's training protocol. So I love, we see Ben Patrick, knees over toe guy, talk about the backwards sled drags. Those are fantastic. Either backwards sled drags, walking uphill backwards, right? So especially when you're out hiking, if you're going up an incline and you start to find that your heart rate is elevating really high and you're really gasping for breath, turn around and walk backwards. Your heart rate decreases big time. But now, and you give those anterior tissues, you're building up that strength through the front of the leg line. Mm-hmm. So I think backwards sled drags, backwards carries of any kind, or backwards uphill walking, I think are really beneficial. I love doing all variations of that.
I think you can build this sense of trust in your balance and like your
yes. Yeah. Because that's what people are lacking, right? Proprioception, right? Mm-hmm. That's why they're hesitant to do that. They're always looking over their shoulder. You're like, oh my goodness. And you can see the hesitation. So if you build that up, so that way they have that confidence, because you never know when you may have to be reactive and take a couple quick steps back.
Yeah.
And we see that some people, you'll watch an NFL game, right? And a referee who should have these skills will try to take a quick few steps back and then they'll fall backwards. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, dude, that should be a prereq. Like you shouldn't have any issues with that.
Right.
So yeah, there's circumstances where you should have confidence to be able to do a backwards movement with full confidence.
Yeah. So how would you regress that particular drill?
I would actually do a static push into a wall.
Okay.
Like a wall sit, but actually pushing.
But just the hips, not the back.
Okay.
I just have them drive the hips back and just give that person to isometrically just push into the floor. so they feel what that's like.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good one.
Yeah. So, and then on that back foot, I want them to actively push the toes into the floor and then work as that front foot is driving into the floor. I like them to just work on dropping that back heel up and down. And so, it helps really strengthen the arch of the foot, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, statically, I'll just have them push into a wall and have them hold that position, then alternate legs. So typically I'll start them at like 6 to 10 second holds and then give them a little bit longer duration. And then, you should see that transfer over really easily to a backwards sled drag. If you want to progress that, do a backwards sled drag and combine that with a carry.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Would you say that'd be your hardest progression?
Yeah, I think that's a great progression. Or partner, back to back.
Yeah.
Boom, back to back. Here you go. Here's one line here, one line here. You guys start in the middle. Boom. You have mass, of course, you got to take that into consideration, right? So you want to try to match people up that have, same body mass or thereabouts. But even then, even the person that's eventually going to lose is still getting a lot out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a great backwards pushing tug of war, so to speak.
Can't do that with us, man. Put you on roller skates.
Oh, come on. Just put me on the little things, man.
But I think that's a great progression, just to transition that. Sleds and weights don't fight back. So I love myself getting people to partner up and use each other as resistance and feedback.
Yeah.
So would you ever go to the field and do like basically back pedals and sprints? Sprints.
Oh yeah.
To really level it up.
Let's take a sport, for example, right? Let's say football. I mean, defensive backs are backpedaling, but how many other position players are doing the same thing? I would still have because players are all on the field. You never know when you might need that back pedal, right? Every lineman on a passing down has to start with that back pedal, right? And they've got to be good at backpedaling quickly and then moving laterally at that same time as backpedaling. So, a lot of people talk about, their footwork, which is true, but then in practice or training in the gym, give them, besides another person, you can use other tools to mimic that, but then have them in practice going up against somebody else. But that back pedal has got to be confident.
Well, I remember seeing Barry Sanders basically do like a jump cut back pedal.
Yeah, right?
Hit the brakes, jump backwards, and then change direction and go.
Boom. But as soon as he hit backwards, that first step, you could see the amount of power driving out of it. I mean, that was one of his big things is his top end speed was never like elite. No one will, he'll tell you that. But his ability to get from 0 to his top speed, oh, wow. Ridiculous. Yeah. Ridiculous. And that was one of the things that made him so great. He didn't have to build it up. Like he put his foot in the ground and it was there. Yeah. Boom. Like there he goes. But yeah, we've seen him on long distance runs get run down from behind, and there are a lot of other running backs that lack that top end speed, but that initial burst and quickness, boom, man, if you have that, makes you dangerous. Yeah. Makes you really dangerous. But yeah, you need to have that availability. Even just in practice, I would think I would have all position players backpedaling. It's just something that, like I said, only cornerbacks are really doing.
Cornerbacks,
defensive backs, linebackers to a small extent.
Linebackers just typically 1 or 2 steps.
That's it. That's it.
Never like a meaningful backpedal.
Yeah, I mean, some of them when they drop back into coverage, they'll take a little bit more. But yeah, I think that's max. Yeah, like I would be having them do that. You got 20-yard backpedal dash, go, boom. Let's see how fast you get into it, and then start, throwing in change of direction. But let's get that initial. Let's see how fast your speed is. You're, going backwards.
I think one of the most embarrassing parts of my life in football was actually, I kid you not, our running back coach beat the entire team backpedaling.
What?
We were sprinting.
Whoa!
I shut the front door.
I'm dead at. I really do wish I was lying, but he was.
College or
he played college.
Okay.
He played college. I think his 40 time was like a 4. 4, 4, 3,
Okay.
4, 4.
So he's probably running
But
like sub 5.
but when
back
he
pedals.
was doing back pedals, I was like, what the? And everybody was going all out,
Dang.
but nobody beat him. And I'm just like, okay, all right, I'll just go sit on the bench right now.
Wow.
But like that's like what you were saying. Like it's an important skill to have, and he had that skill. So to see that in practice was
That's nuts,
bizarre.
man. Yeah, Deion Sanders says, I forget what it is, but I think he said he could run sub 5
Backwards. That's fast.
That's fast.
I don't know if it's true or not, but
That's fast.
yeah.
Yeah.
But even still, like that's faster than like a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
lot of
yeah, of course.
I don't even think I can get probably get like maybe a sub 8.
Because you think about how many people, you talk about knee issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you think about movements that are lacking in their training, and really moving backwards is one of them.
Yes.
I think it's because it's so simplistic
Mm-hmm.
that we just don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's backwards walking is a thing. Someone like Ben Patrick bringing more prevalence to it, freaking kudos. That's awesome. We want information like that out there so people start to understand the value and importance of having this in their training programs.
Absolutely.
So no matter who's getting that message out, it's getting out there. And so you're starting to see more people do those drills. And they're starting to feel the benefits, I should say, of adding those into their training protocols. So yeah. So that was great. Those are our personal favorite drills. And as time goes on, we'll start to add in different ones, right? Because like you said, it changes, right? It changes. Our daily demands will require that they change. We may ultimately prefer to gravitate to something new. And we go, okay, I really like this better now.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So it's always adaptable. Yeah. And I think every maybe 4 to 5 years, there should be at least 1 or 2 of those exercises maybe replaced with something else.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, for years, man, I still like kettlebell training, but it was a big part of my training.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When we first met. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Huge, right?
But now I don't do like traditional kettlebell training anymore. I use it sometime, every now and then I'll swing it.
Yeah.
Or I'll just use it for load, for split squats, for carry, different things. But yeah, it's something that used to be my favorite, but it isn't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I still love the swings, but it's like you said, I use them more for just, carries, loads. But yeah, the actual teaching people how to do the cleans and the snatches. And it's like, how many of my clients really need to use those, right? Because, like we've talked about before, there's an intimidation factor with certain tools, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, how do this person is just not, there's not the buy-in to using this kettlebell. So why am I going to try to force this person? I can sneak it in and maybe over a period of time, kind of trick them and get them to kind of maybe fall in love with it a little bit or like it a little bit more. But yeah, just to try to jam it down somebody's throat and go, no, you're going to use these. Yeah, you got to have that buy-in right there. Yeah. All right, so last question. It's opening night of the NFL season. Super Bowl picks. We gotta go back to Super Bowl pick. Now, Peter King, mind you, this I thought was interesting. Peter King from Sports Illustrated has picked in the preseason the last 4 Super Bowl winners correctly.
Seriously?
I was like, holy shit, that's ridiculous. I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous, actually. That's even breaking down all the teams.
Yeah.
And like he does, that's still to do 4 in a row.
That's actually
in the preseason.
Impressive. That's pretty impressive.
Not halfway through the season, in the preseason. I think that's pretty impressive. Who you got?
For Super Bowl this year? That's hard to say. I think that I probably go with, in my heart of hearts, I want to say the Raiders. It's not going to happen. But I would say, I think the Bucks are going to get to the Super Bowl, probably. I think there's a pretty good chance. Tom Brady's coming out of retirement, that whole thing. So I think there's a chance there. I think the Rams are looking pretty solid, depending on how their team comes together. So I would say probably those two are going to be in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Going with the Niners. Selfishly, and they're good. They made it to the NFC Championship last year. Probably going to play against Bills.
Yeah, I got the Bills winning it.
Yeah.
They end it. They finally break the curse or whatever it is. So, yeah, I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to come out of the NFC. I don't have any picks there, but yeah, I'm going to take the Bills to win it all. So, but until next episode, thanks for joining us and be good to each other. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and whatever platform you're on, either Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, please, if you could leave a review, we'd appreciate that. If you have any questions that we can answer for you, be sure to leave those in the comments also.
If you're looking for more information on our education, our products, please go to www.stickmobility.com.
And also hit that subscribe button to that YouTube channel. And don't forget our live Instagram classes 3 times a week. If you want to join in, grab your sticks and hit that 45-minute class.